Hello and welcome to yet another episode of the Integrated Life Show. This is Bharti Nayak and Sagar Amlani. We both welcome you to this amazing talk show, which is on the integrated life that we both are living. And we really want each one of you to live this integrated life. And this integrated life is thus talks about when you have a sense of fulfillment in your life, when you really feel the happiness in your life, and when you have that gratitude in your heart. That is where you really feel that yes, you are living the integrated life. And that's what this entire talk show is about. And today, being the fourth, which is the fourth episode in the line of the principles that we are sharing, the fourth one is delegation or the delegate. That's what we are going to talk about today. But yes, today we want to know from which part of the world you have been logged in. So please put up your comments and let us know what's your name and where you have logged in from. And it is so exciting that so many of you log in from different parts of the world, and yet we connect and we talk, we discuss, you ask questions, you download the PDF, and you really want to understand, want to find out how to live an integrated life, which talks about personal and professional life, because it's about integrating the elements, the major elements of your life, and not just about balancing it. It's about how do you integrate every aspect and live a fulfilled life that we have. So please put up your comments and let us know where you have logged in from today, which part of the world. Oh, that's lovely. We have Tony from Bangladesh who has logged in today. Welcome, Tony. This is great and it's really exciting. Welcome to the show. Yes, Sagar.
Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you, Bharti. Thank you very much for welcoming Tony. And yes, it is absolutely exciting. People have been downloading the checklist. We've got emails from them. People have enjoyed taking down, checklists for burnout, celebration, attention to detail. Now, for people who have just joined in and who are thinking, what is this? Where do I get the downloads from? Well, don't worry, my dear friend. All you need to do is I am just pulling out the thing, and here, this is the website. You can go in and you can download all the episodes, all the checklist, absolutely free to integrate your life and bring out the sense of fulfillment, happiness, and gratitude. While we talk about all this, today we also would like to bear a 1 minute silence for one of our dear professional speaker uh, who's been an inspiration to both of us and also to Professional Speaker Association of India, Bala. We definitely miss you a lot, and we would hold a 1 minute silence in his name, and God bless his soul.
Bala has been the most loved voice of PSA India, uh, with his wicked sense of humor, the flair for penning some amazing stories, and really an inspiration for all of us. And uh, he left us yesterday evening, and that was very shocking to know today morning, and it's painful for many of us who know and has been very close to Bala for all these years. So
Yep, God bless his soul and Om Shanti. And from wherever you're joining us, please include him in your prayers and God bless his soul once again. So, as we say, the show must go on. And yes, we had a very good thing talking about celebration last week. Bharti would, of course, led us through the whole event that happened last week. But at the same time, There are certain cultures in the world that even celebrate the death of a human being, because everybody who is born on this earth has to die someday. Then rather than living in the fear of the death, why not celebrate it? So there are certain cultures who even celebrate it. Over to you, Bharti, and give us a context of what happened in the last episode and what did we learn.
Yes, absolutely. So, the last episode, we spoke about celebrations. We spoke about how every moment is so precious in our life, and we celebrate every moment, every joyous moment that we have. And of course, you spoke about the study that has been done by Howard University of how celebration that leads to happiness. And the study said that it actually increased the employees' productivity by 12%. And that's the most amazing part. So when we celebrate, why we only focus on the achievements, the major achievements, or some special days that comes in our life? Why can't we celebrate these small, tiny, minor things that happens in our life? It could be your, say, you have achieved a small milestone in your career, or you bring a surprise for your family and make them happy. The moment becomes so precious. Or you may have achieved your daily target or finished your KPIs and KRAs, and why a manager can just go and give that celebrating moment to that employee or to the team members. Let the entire team celebrate those moments.
Yep.
Throwing a surprise party to all the friends and inviting them over dinner. It could be so many precious moments that you can collect, can become the pearls for your integrated life. Celebration is a very important element of your life, because when you bring that celebration in your life, it gives you a sense of fulfillment, it gives you the happiness, the joy, and of course, in a way, you are putting your gratitude, you are showing that gratefulness to the other people, that how important, how valuable they are in your life, and hence you are celebrating it with them. And that becomes very important, because those are the three key fundamental aspects of the integrated life. And that's what we both discussed in the last episode. And of course, you can go to the YouTube channel, Sagar Amlani. You can watch out those entire episodes, the third one, and also there's an important checklist, the PDF. You can download it and put up all the details, answer the questions, and write us. We would be so happy to know how did you celebrate your day. Yes,
So,
sir.
Bharti, we have one amazing viewer from LinkedIn, Mr. Keshav. He says, "I don't understand this program." So
Ah,
I thought of bringing it up and sharing with him, because this is an integrated life show and we don't want anyone to feel missed out or left out. So, Keshav, this is only for you. We started this program with 26 episodes in mind and with a concept that we wanted to bring an integrated life. Now, why is integrated life so important? So that's where we came to a point that we talked about work life balance, where we say it's a myth. Why? Because some days the work is required more, some day life is more. And in that work life balance, we spend most of our life in guilt. The guilt that we don't give time to our families, the guilt that we don't give time to ourselves, the guilt that we are not social enough. Why do we have to live in that guilt? Don't ever have the guilt, because the guilt will never let you grow. And I have seen people in the last days also, they still have the guilt. I didn't spend time with my family, I was working more, or I was doing this and I was doing that. Now that exactly is the myth that we are trying to break, that instead of living in that guilt, let's integrate our work life, family, relationship, and all the elements together. And when you have it integrated, it does not need to be balanced, it just needs to be integrated. And that's exactly what is the purpose of this program. I hope this clears it for you. And you can watch out all the episodes on our website and download all the checklist for you to have an integrated life. The link is right here. And I hope, my friend, that explains you what this show is about. Now, coming back to the topic of the day, which is delegation. Now, Remember, when we talk about episode 2, burnout, we said that if you don't delegate, it leads to burnout. Of course, there are many other ways that leads to burnout, but delegation was one of them. And it is very, very important for us to delegate. Now, what really is delegation? Delegation is transfer of authority, transfer of responsibility from one person to another. People who delegate effectively and responsibly can foster trust within the people around, within the teams around, can build a high performing team and demonstrate increased productivity for everyone, which not only reduces cost, saves time, but also can definitely improve customer delight. Yes, Bharti, what do you have to say about it?
Absolutely, Sagar, and I'm sure Kesha would have more comments and questions for the show, and I'm happy to answer. And Sagar has already shared what the Integrated Life Show is all about. Delegation. When we understand the word delegation, in the literal term, it's about you are giving your some portion of your work to somebody else to do it. You want to share your task with somebody else and let them complete it. That could be the literal word of delegation, but in reality, in the actual sense, what Saga mentioned is you are delegating your trust. You are showing your trust in the other person. That's why you're delegating. You are actually showing that you have that responsibility and you want to share that responsibility with the other. That's why you are delegating. So when you delegate, you not just delegate a task, you not just delegate a work that to other person, but you are delegating your one part of it. And that's the actual value that you bring in delegation. It is deep rooted because it involves many aspects that we are going to talk about today, especially when it comes to corporates, especially when it comes to managers, how when you're handling a team and when you really want to delegate some of those important work assignments projects to your team members and what it actually conveys as a leadership. As a leader, how do they look at you when you are delegating those tasks to them? So that's what we're going to talk about today. Yes, Sagar.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, before we get on to it, let me tell you, if proper delegation is not done, what happens? It results into burnout, number one. Number two, it results into anxiety. Number three, it creates uncertainty. Number four, it creates mistrust, misconceptions. Fifth, it creates self-centeredness. And last but not the least, it shows the lack of trust and lack of communication skill. Now, why should we delegate? What are the advantages of delegation? Well, number one, it helps you to build a strong team. Number two, it increases personal productivity. Number three, it enhances overall efficiency of the whole team. It helps you build a good culture and an organization which is full of trust and accountability. Now, these are the advantages of delegation just to start with. But what is more important is to understand right, effective delegation, because there are so many people who just keep delegating without showing the proper care, empathy, communication, and the right end goal. And they just think that delegating, being a manager, it's my right, it's my birthright to delegate. Well, that leads to a lot of problems, and teams leave the job. We all know that the teams leave or the employee leaves not because of the organization, but because of poor management. So, my friend, that is the importance of delegation, but not only delegation, the word is right, effective delegation.
Absolutely, Sagar. When we were discussing about this delegation, and I remember we had few questions ourselves. So the first question that I had was that why we don't delegate? What is it that stops us? Why is it that uh, we are not sure about it? And the very basic uh, reasons why we don't delegate. The first reason is, one, we are caged into our own perfectionism. And that's one of the roadblocks of also why we procrastinate, because we are so much caged into our own perfectionism that we feel that we are the only person who can do this task perfectly. There's nobody else who can do it as perfect as I can do it. And trust me, it was a time when I had so much problem issues to delegate my work to somebody else. Only reason was because I thought that I can make this cake perfectly. There's nobody else who can do this well. And the kind of design, the kind of taste, the texture, the flavor, it's only I who can create it. So there was a lot of strong embedded limiting beliefs that I was carrying, and hence it was stopping me from delegating my work. The other important reason was the trust. Do I really trust the person whom I want to delegate? Do I trust with my abilities? Do I trust with his or her own abilities that yes, he or she will be able to do the job well? And that trust was missing. And that trust was missing because I never took those efforts to actually train or share what is it that I want in this work. If I would have done that, probably the person would have trained enough to do the job work for me. But I didn't take those efforts to do it. And the third reason, and that's the very interesting reason, because when I conducted this program for one of the companies in 2021, one of the managers just raised his hand and he said, "But why should I delegate? Because if I'm delegating, I'm actually literally asking my work, like, my team member or my subordinate to do my work. And if that person is doing my job, then tomorrow he or she will take up my position and will do the job. Then the company will need me." Big insecurity.
Yep.
And I was smiling when he was sharing this, and he said, "I would not want to delegate the work to my subordinate because, in a way, I am training him or I'm training her to be me. And tomorrow they will be in my position." And the only question I asked him that if they come to your position, where would you go? Would you go down or would you go up in the ladder of your growth? So when you are actually delegating, you are teaching or you are sharing your skill set with somebody else. You are training, tuning with that person, and you're actually uplifting the person
Yep.
because you are giving that skill set. And the moment you uplift the other person, what would the other person would do? Would actually give you the sense of gratitude, will be so happy, will feel that sense of fulfillment. And in return, the person will give you more. And of course, when the person gives you more, you only grow in your life. You don't go down in your life. And
Yep.
these are the three major reasons we don't delegate, because we don't trust others, we have this big time insecurity, or we are caged in our own perfectionism and we
Okay.
have our own limiting beliefs that I'm the only one who can do it right. Yes, Agar.
Yep. Very well said, Bharti. Very well said. So let me ask a question to all the listeners out here. What did you delegate today? What is the one task that you delegate today? Or what did you delegate it today if you're in the evening? And so on. So write to us and let us know while we continue the show with the next point, where let me give you all an example. We all drive a car sometimes, but sometimes the office provides us with the car and the driver, not because they want to pamper us, but sometimes they want us to do the work while we sit at the back seat of the car, right? And that is basically delegation of our job of driving. Instead of us driving, we are giving it to the driver. And the same analogy of car, CAR, is basically core elements of delegation. So when we talk about delegation, always remember the example of car. We delegate it to a driver, we delegated someone to drive us, and at the back seat, we are working on something important, something that only we can do, something the driver can't do. So delegation is all about giving the opportunity, giving the responsibility to someone who does it better than you, and you can do something better than them. So delegation is all about collaboration, co-creation, and growth. Thank you, Purva. Sharing your skill set with someone, afflicting others, that brings a sense of gratitude. Absolutely. Thank you very much, Purva, for commenting. And we really appreciate your viewpoint. So, coming back to the concept of car, C stands for communication, which means when you assign or when you're delegating, communicate with clarity, communicate with a sense of direction of where that person should go while he's doing that job. A stands for authority. Give them the right authority, right? And R stands for review. Create a review mechanism to make them accountable. A simple thing, CAR. Remember, car, driver, you are the backseat doing a better job, and driver is doing a better job of what he's best at. And car stands for communication, assigning the right direction to get the job done. A stands for giving the right authority, and R stands for review or setting up the right accountability to check if the job is done or not, because that exactly are the three core elements of delegation. Delegation does not mean that you assign the job and you forget about it, and only when the last minute arrives, you ask and you say, hey, I told you to do that job. My dear friend, keeping a review, keeping a regular check is also your job when you delegate it. So that's from me to understand the core elements of delegation. Remember, CAR.
Lovely. What an amazing acronym, CAR. And it's so easy to remember, Sagar. And the driver example, it really related very quickly with me. And yes, what you're saying is absolutely right, because uh, the when we say that it's easy to delegate, it's equally difficult to delegate as well, because many a times, many a times, I have come across scenarios where people, one, they are not aware that they are actually supposed to delegate. Why? Because they are so overwhelmed with their work and there's so much on their platter that they don't know that they're actually supposed to delegate. That's the major issue that I notice many a times when I go to companies and when I when I do my discovery call with them. And this is the major thing that they say, oh, should I be delegating this task? I said, yes, you can. The second part is they don't know what task or which part they can delegate. So identifying what is it that we must delegate is another issue that people face. And then, of course, the third is the trust issues and being insecure about it because they have their own beliefs. Uh, the, another question that I wanted to ponder upon is why we should actually delegate. Of course, when we are delegating, we are helping somebody to learn new skills. We are also helping in a way in uplifting them so their growth happens. So we are thinking about other person. The important part is why we should delegate. I think that's the biggest lesson that I learned in 2020 when the whole world went online, went virtual. Being an entrepreneur myself over the decade, I had a small team who was taking care of business development, marketing, and so many other things. When things went online, suddenly the business came to standstill. And I was not prepared to go online and be on virtual platforms. So it took a lot of efforts and it took me a long time to actually understand the technology, understand different softwares, different platforms, and how to integrate and how these automation things happen. It was very overwhelming. What mistake I did was, as an entrepreneur, I thought I must learn everything. And I started learning every bit of it. And that was my mistake because when I did this, of course, it took a lot of time in knowing it and then you mastering it. So there are two different things altogether. The other thing, what happened was, it made me so overwhelmed that I actually forgot my expert area. What is my expertise? What is it that I love to do? I started, it defocused me from that part, and I started focusing on the things which are actually not my area, which is not my expertise. And over the months, maybe by June, July of 2020, I realized that knowing few things is okay because I should know what I am expecting as a work. But the moment I have understood that this is what the work is, I must outsource few of the things which I am not in a position to do it because that's not my expertise. And that's where I started making a good amount of list that what is it that I must delegate. So the
Okay.
first question I asked was, what is it that I love to do? What is it that I like to do? And I pinned down few things that these are the things that I love to do, and these are the things I don't like to do it. And that made it so clear that, okay, if these things I don't like it, I must find the right person. So when you say it's not only about delegation, but it's about right, effective delegation, I think that's what I did in 2020 and it gave me good results. Yes,
Brilliant.
Sagar.
So we have a question from Purva. I have a question.
Oh,
Many a time I'm being delegated a task, and out of overwhelming, I at times can't perform it. How important it becomes to learn assertiveness in this scenario. Well, I would not say we need to learn assertiveness here, but I would say we also can learn the art of saying no sometimes when we are overwhelmed, when we are overbooked, when we are overloaded, we also can learn the art of saying no. And that's exactly the future episode that we will bring on, which talks about how to learn how to say no. While in the second scenario, let's say if you've been given a task and you know that you're good at it, rather than being overwhelmed for a long time, be happy, be overwhelmed, uh, but then manage your energy and synchronize yourself in such a way that you come back to action and perform it in case if you love that thing. Otherwise, it's better learn to say no. And that is going to be a future episode as we go along. But Purva, thank you very much for this interesting question. And as Bharti rightly said, that we should responsibly, rightly delegate and we should trust each other. But at the same time, we should know what our strengths are. And that's exactly a point where I would love to announce something very, very special today. While we are talking about delegating work, while we are talking about as a professional speaker, as a content creator, as a person who is more creative, I would love if someone takes care of my content, my social media, my website, my digital marketing, and also editing of my videos. And that's exactly what today's sponsor, the production house, brings it for us. So they actually have a three subscription model which takes care of all your needs. And that's a brilliant thing that we can do. All you need to do is scan the QR code and get on with your free call to understand how they can help you and how you can delegate your responsibilities for them. So, the production house is the sponsor for today's show. Not that we wanted to have a sponsor, but we are blessed to have a sponsor because it's all about delegation and making your life easy, making your life an integrated life. Delegate the task to them which they are specialist on, like PR, industry specific plans, customized video editing, launch offers for your product, and they are loaded with tons and tons and tons of idea. So the production house, thank you for sponsoring this show and today's episode about delegation. Yes, Bharti, over to you.
lovely. And I'm so grateful to today's sponsors who have sponsored this episode. And this was the first thing this was in my list in 2020 when I said, I don't know how to do video editing. I don't know how to be so much active on social media and uh, be really up in the game when everything has gone online. Should I focus more on creating content? Should I focus more on disseminating the knowledge, the kind of experiences, the the depth of understanding that I have collected, or should I be focusing here? So these were some of the very basic fundamental questions that I had. And thanks to the production house, they are really, really wonderful. And they did the job so well. And I think some of the work that requires trust, and I think that's the trust that is built with the production house. So thank you so much for
Absolutely.
sponsoring the episode.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So now moving on with the next point, we understand the issues that could arise if you don't delegate. We understood the CAR of delegation, the core elements. But what really is delegation? What is the process of delegation? And how can you actually properly delegate? So the first thing is understand what you need to delegate, which means find out or know what is to be delegate, right? The second point is play to the strength of your team or understand your weaknesses. If you understand your weaknesses, you can know what you want to delegate or know the strength of your team and you will know what to delegate. Define the end goal, define what you need to achieve, define what is the logical goal that you want to achieve when this task is going to be completed. Provide the right resources and infrastructure to the team so that they can actually complete the task with the right infrastructure and right resources. Authorize them, give them the authority to take decisions whenever required. Don't micromanage your team when you delegate them. Have a clear channel for communication, for escalation, for raising their doubts, for raising their voice, and help them to raise their concerns so that it can be done in a better, smoother, and a faster way. Leave a room for failure. But when I say that, it's very important to understand the intention of the person who has failed. If the intentions are right, if the intentions are positive, and still the failure has happened, it's okay to fail. Sometimes the intentions are not okay. And at that point, I would not agree that failure is okay. So, intention is very important. So, leave a room for failure, understanding intentions. Be patient with your team because you want them to grow, you want them to learn. Remember, if you had a kid who is learning to walk, you hold their finger and you walk slowly with their pace. You don't run. So be patient when you delegate. Your kid is growing, you ask him to give you a glass of water just because you want him to learn. You're patient enough till he gets you the glass of water and you're full of happiness when he delivers it to you, even though if it is half filled, isn't it? Now that's delegation, that's being patient. Most important, review it. Have them accountable, give them that ownership, review it with them, push them harder so that they can grow better and bigger. Last but not the least, appreciate them for the work that they've done. Even if there are some glitches, even if there are some mistakes, but if they've done it with the right intention, with the right effort, appreciate them. And this is a very, very simple way to delegate the work to your teams or to your family members. So, delegation is not only in professional life, it also happens in personal life. And sometimes we delegate, but we create a lot of expectations. So delegate with these 11 points, and I'm sure you will be scaling high up as a leader or as a family member who loves to delegate and loves to teach everyone.
Absolutely, Sagar. And those are these wonderful, wonderful 11 points. Because when we are delegating, uh, let's understand this part, what rightly Sagar mentioned. When we are delegating, that delegation starts with us first. It starts with me. Am I actually ready to delegate? And it starts with my mind that am I clear about what is it that I want to delegate? Because as an entrepreneur, when I was running and chasing so much of work, targets, goals, so many projects that I had in my hand, I was more like a hamster on a wheel, continuously running, and the wheel is moving fast. And I would simply react. Sometimes I would get drained out. And if you go back to the episode Burnout, I was exactly like this. burning out myself completely because of this workload. And that's where I had to first sit with myself and decide that yes, I'm ready to delegate. So that happens with me first. Am I ready to do that? The second important part that for me, the learning was that what is it? Because there's a mental capacity, there's a mental space that I have. And if in that mental space, if I'm really looking at my mental space, what is it that I am involving in that space? If I'm involving other things which I don't want to do it, other things which are important, but I can get it done by others, or some things that I don't like to do it, if those things are a part of my mental space, they will just drain my energy like anything. And I will not be productive. I will not be proactive in working whatever I want to complete, whatever I want to work. And I will just get distracted or diverted to other things.
Yeah.
So, this was my second learning that yes, I have a mental space, and how do I want to actually develop this mental space? What is it that I want to bring into this mental space? Something that I love to do. It gives me a sense of fulfillment, it gives me joy, it gives me happiness, or something that I don't want like it and I still am doing this. So those were my two learnings. And the third thing was that I have a time bandwidth, and that requires me to be aware, also requires me to be with my family, with my daughters, with my spouse, with my friends, and there's a part in me that wants to be with myself. So I have that time bandwidth. Now if I am valuing my time bandwidth, there comes the question, then what part I should start delegating. And that was my third learning, that if I have a time bandwidth and I value that, I must delegate it. And then came my
Yeah.
fourth learning, that to whom should I delegate? So I started, so this was more like not like an experiment, but of course, family members are always the guinea pigs when we are working on certain behaviors. So I started noticing and observing who is good or who is very good at certain things. And I started delegating those small, tiny tasks to them. And I started being more patient and also respecting their time to complete the work, because some things which I can do it in 5 minutes, they might take 7 minutes. So I started being more patient and understanding that yes, they will take more time. And in some ways, I would also say, I would always say that yes, you can do it. So I had to really put out my trust in them. And as Saga rightly mentioned, that be ready for failures. I would say be ready for such learning experiences. That yes, there would be learning experiences where they will make mistakes, and you as a mentor or you as a guide can always be there for them and say, okay, let's do it in a different way. And I think that will create a lot of synergy in a team, a lot of synergy in a family, a lot of synergy working together in an organization. Because when you start creating such kind of environment, you are actually taking care of not only your growth, because when you're delegating, you have your mental space, you have your time bandwidth with you to do the things that you want to do. If you're a fantastic strategist, you want to strategize some things at your work and really scale up your business. If you're fantastic at producing something or creating something, let's focus on that part. If you're fantastic at marketing or you have those fantastic business ideas to come up with some amazing deals and be very good at sales, then you focus there and let other part be taken care by somebody else who are good at other things. Because
Brilliant.
that always starts, the delegation starts with you first. Are you ready to do that? Yes, Agar.
Nice. That's a brilliant point that you're making here. And while we talk about all that, that really highlights that what Bharti said is about being proactive in delegation. Yes, if you delegate, it improves productivity. But the point that Bharti was trying to communicate is you need to be proactive in delegation and not wait for the last moment where actually you're burnt out, you don't have time, and then you just delegate everything off your plate to everyone who is around you. Now, that's disaster in making. That's definitely a big disaster. And we've seen so many people around us. They wait, they wait, they wait. And just before a day when the project is to be delivered, or just before a night when the PPT is to be delivered, or just before the day of the event it's to be delivered, they say, I can't do anything and I'm burned out. And, they say so many things to do. Who stopped you? Delegate it. Delegate it from the beginning. Be proactive. And I remember chairing PSS conference, the annual summit that happens 2020. And yes, I was burnt out. Yes, I did say that, I don't want to be a chair anymore. But it was not because of poor delegation, but that was because of not having a clear direction. And that's where the president then came up and gave me a clear direction, Mr. Kiruba, and he said that, don't worry, Sagar, I have a trust in you, and you will really, really put a very good show. And that's where I got into action, started creating teams, delegating teams. And trust me, I heard it from the horse's mouth. Kiruba Shankar himself, Praveen Shekhar, and John Molador, that it was one of the finest events that they attended. And that happened not because I did it, it's because of we did it as a team. The team who was behind it had taken up the responsibility. I had just delegated it to them, and we were reviewing every day morning. Some people understood that delegation in a different way. Some people understood that delegation as a sense of authority. Now, it completely depends on how you take that responsibility that your managers or your superiors delegated to you. If you take it as an opportunity to grow and learn, well, you enjoy the delegation. If you take that delegation as a burden, as a load, or an extra work, well, you're losing out to learn something. So it always depends on the perspective of how you take that delegation. It's not always about giving the right delegation or giving the effective way. It's also somebody who takes it, because remember, it requires two hands to clap, not one hand. So if it's important to delegate rightly, it's also very important to have the right perspective to accept that delegation. So while we come to that point, what are some things that we should and we can delegate? A job that is related to someone who knows it better than you, that's one. Second, something which is a repetitive task and can be done by someone at a very junior level without using their brain or too much of thinking. Something which is a very well defined procedure and processes, and that is exactly where during Zapro meetings or Zapro consulting, I stir and I emphasize on creating processes, procedures, because when you have the set processes and procedures with accountability and KPIs listed in them, you can actually delegate with ease, and the people who are receiving it can also enjoy it with ease. Third, something that promotes employee engagement. Now, these are few of the things that you should delegate, but there are also certain things that I would love to share before handing it over to Bharti, that what you should not delegate is something which is a very sensitive thing or a sensitive information, like employee salaries. If you are an HR person, you can delegate it outside to someone else, or some personal perks that you give it to your personal employees, some sensitive collaboration, or some sensitive business deals that are being happened. You cannot delegate, you cannot afford to delegate those. Some very, very high order task or some very, very high order clients, you cannot delegate them because you need not to lose them. Last but not the least, you cannot delegate something just because you want to move that pressure out of your head, and that can jeopardize the whole organization. So delegation is not about shedding away your responsibilities, but delegation is about being responsible to grow your team. So I end my journey with you today on the delegation part here. I would now give it over to Bharti to explain more points on how to delegate effectively and how to be proactive in that area. Over to you, Bharti.
Amazing, Sagar. That's really the gold I would say you are sharing today. That where we need to actually draw the lines for delegation, where what tasks we shouldn't be delegating and what actually we can delegate and how. Those are amazing points, Sagar. Only to add a couple of things here, what Sagar mentioned about delegation is delegation is like a delicacy, very, very thin line, or I would say very delicate part. You want to do it and you don't want to do it. That's the kind of dilemma you have. And when you are delegating your task, you might have a fear that you might lose the control. And to keep the control in your hand, you give the task, but you don't give the authority to do things. So that means you have given the task assuming that the person is a robot and the person will just do it. And you start monitoring, you start supervising, you start micromanaging. Now, that's the delicate part because if you do that, the person may not be able to do the work more effectively, may not be as productive as you want to be because micromanaging something is not what people would like it. Now, here is a leader. What you can do is you delegate the task, you delegate the responsibility, and that brings in some amount of authority, that this is the boundaries where the person can work in this area, and trust the person in doing that. Because if you are delegating the task, you are also sharing something, and that's the most important part. The second point is when you are delegating, actually what happens is people don't do the work that you expect them to do, they do the work that you are inspecting them. So when you are delegating, you need to inspect, are they doing it in the right manner, that the way you want it to do. Now here is what the thin line that I shared. When you're inspecting, you do it with respect. You just don't do it out of micromanaging them. You do it with respect. You do it with that kind of a position where you are here if they need you, a kind of a mentor, a kind of a guide, a kind of a person whom they can come if they need thee. So that means you are also sharing your side for them to grow. So when you take that position, because when you are showing that yes, I'm delegating, it puts you in a certain authority. But at the same time, if you are sharing that authority to somebody, you are actually uplifting them. So delegation, yes, it is delicacy, but it's a sweet delicacy. You should know the right balance of flavors and textures. I know Sagar must be thinking that here she opened her box of cakes and chocolates
No, it always
because
makes
that's
our show sweeter, right?
yes, it always makes our work, our life sweeter when we delegate it. And I had my own share of learnings when I started delegating my work to people, and I started training them that which part of the baking, which part of finishing the cake that I can share, I can delegate, and I'll be ready with the final product that I can give it to the client. So yes, it required me some part where it was my learning curve, but yes, I did that, and I think that has uplifted my business to a great heights.
Absolutely. And always remember, listeners, cake is the best example that you cannot balance everything in the cake. You have to integrate the components, integrate the elements to enjoy that. Work life balance is, again, a myth which people juggle, fear, live in guilt, until the end of their life. They don't come out of that guilt because they never could balance it. So the best part is integrate it and enjoy every single moment of your life with a sense of fulfillment, happiness, and gratitude. With that, we come to the end of the show, and the link down here helps you to download the checklist for you to understand, are you delegating in the right and the effective way? If not, what are you missing in life? What can you delegate? How you can delegate? And what are the things that you wish to delegate? So, my friends, click on the link below, and don't worry if you miss it, just go onto the website theintegratedlife.co.in, and all four episodes, all four checklists are ready for you to download. And till then, Thank you very much. And good evening, good night, good morning, good afternoon from wherever in the world you're watching us. And we will be joining back to you on next Tuesday at 9 p.m.
See you all next Tuesday, 9 p.m. And till then, have a very, very fantastic life. Wonderful evening with your loved ones. Stay safe, stay healthy. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And we're sharing the image of the sponsor again. So if you want to have a free conversation with them, a free one-to-one with them, just scan the QR code and you will receive your free consulting if you're looking to have your part of delegation with them. Thank you very much, the production house, for sponsoring this episode of The Integrated Life on Delegation. Good night and thank you.